Chapter 14. Much has changed in the Bai. The town is abuzz with the news that a new captain has joined the foreign fleet, a man that can fish like no other, and that he has led them to a spectacular catch. "He can speak with fish," is the refrain whispering through the sorting halls of the 6 remaining fabrica. "He is the boy of the Morkel fabrik, the one with the broken lip. He has joined with them." "Where did Yoguchi find him?" The 6 mutter among themselves, Van Deventer, Mostert, Wetherall Thomas, the Scarfsma brothers and Mocker, as they speed the main road with their hand phones pasted to their windshields and their worries filling their double cabs. "The catch is a big one. It is over 1,000 ton. Never has a catch in the Bai been that big. Will Yoguchi share it with us? He must." The men know that one of Yoguchi's 5 vessels is trawling back to them, riding low in the water. And they know that the 4 others have peeled away in the open ocean and have long since crossed into international seas. "Of course he will. What else will he do with such a multitude?" The men fret and hurry and prepare their sorting halls, opening the rooms that have gathered nothing but dust these 7 long years. Only old Mocker drives easy, alone in his Datsun. Only he does not feed the worry. Instead, he looks out his windshield at the building cloud and marks the coming of autumn. And while the 6 call to each other through their phones, the rest whisper. The town knows. The wallowing trawler has been spotted out in the deep by little craft who have raced ahead of it, spreading the message. The strident calls via 2-way radio that echo from onshore receivers are a signal to all. The airwaves twist with fish that must be processed before they rot. All along the coast, men and women return to their fabrica. The factory doors are opened, the boilers are lit, and they wait. Many forsake their place at the line, instead streaming to the harbor in the hopes of seeing what is said to be true, that the ships of the Yamamoto fleet can freeze a fish and then bring it gasping back from the dead. They fill the quay and they wait as the 5th vessel rounds the breakwater wall. The Fugisha eases into dock, its hold aligning with the old loading pipe waiting to receive the catch. Uncle Mike moves among the crowd. He has dressed himself in the clothing of the men from the Bai. He wears the denim shorts and pocketed shirt, the shade hat perched on his head and knife and hand phone clipped to his belt. But he is not one of them any longer. The throng think nothing of him. They know Mike Morkel and his fabrik, but the 6 are quick to mark him. "Middag, oom. Afternoon, uncle," says Uncle Mike as he slips in beside old Mocker, looming 2 heads taller than the little man. "Mikey," nods Mocker, not taking his eyes from the docking trawler. "So, you are back." All observe Yoguchi moving along the deck, clothed as always in his light jeans and running shoes, dark shades and laundered open-necked shirt. All watch as he skips across the great ship towering above them and the best of their boats, even though the Fugisha is the smallest of the Yamamoto fleet. Yoguchi looks out to the gathered crowds and raises a hand above his smile. "Hello!" He hops to the lowered ladder and comes dancing down to the quay. "We are glad you could all join us." Beneath Yoguchi, the portside loading hatch is sliding open. "We are about to show you all something special. We are lucky we could find a decent pipe." Yoguchi points beyond the crowd. All turn to see the Bai's old harbour hand, Mr. Regan Monroe, pulling the big loading pipe on its retractable bracket near. As wide as a tractor tire, the nozzle will latch to the hatch and suck the harvest from the vessel. From there, the catch will be pumped along the length of the quay to the waiting lorries. Uncle Mike turns to look at them, making use of his vantage point over the crowd. 7 lorries are lined up there, his own man Sali at the wheel of one. Uncle Mike nods to himself. He has not yet spoken to Sali, but the man knows his mind. "Wait!" It is Yoguchi calling, as he ducks under the suspended hose to put a hand on Monroe's shoulder. He speaks with the old harbour hand as the hatch slides fully open, revealing the frozen catch within. The crowd edge closer, eager to see. Monroe stands aside, swinging the hose on its suspended bracket away. Yoguchi comes to stand in front of the hatch, jumping up onto a big mooring cleat to better face the crowd. His new height puts him at eye level with Uncle Mike. The little man flashes a smile to him only, before turning to those gathered. "People of the Bai," he calls to them. "Our ships have hunted, and we have come home victorious. We have brought you a good catch, and we hope you will enjoy it as our gesture of friendship." The people of the Bai cheer. Yoguchi points across the crowd to Uncle Mike and the gathered six. "Your factories are ready to work, and we have brought fish for you to work. So, work we must. Process this catch, and then let us celebrate." Yoguchi steps aside to reveal the open hold. It is a gloomy hole, inside which dark bodies and white ice can just be seen. "Mr. Monroe, would you mind showing us one of our frozen fish?" Monroe starts, surprised at the request. "Come on, sir. Simply reach into our hold and bring out one of our fish. I'm sure all would like to see it." Monroe shrugs and smiles. It is not a tough task, and it feels good to have the eyes of the crowd on him. He steps forward, hesitantly reaching into the dark. "Take any," calls Yoguchi. "Bring it out. Let us see." Monroe does so, bringing not one but 2 tunny out into the light, each frozen to the other, their eyes icy mirrors. "Pass them round." Monroe does so. "And another," calls Yoguchi, infected by the excitement of all of them. Monroe passes another and then another out from the bursting hold. All know the feel of fish, all know the feel of ice, and all know the sight of death. These fish are fresh caught and frozen, just like any other catch brought forth from the deep sea. They are as frozen as any fish any buyer has ever seen. Yoguchi watches as the crowd pass them from palm to palm, a wide smile upon his face. He turns to look up to the deck to one of his men there. He nods, and the man in turn looks up to the bridge and nods also. "Watch the hold," calls Yoguchi, and all eyes turn to the portal. There is a moment while all are waiting, and then there is a hiss within the hold. Again there is a pause, and then all rear back as a scent of lavender washes over them. And then they cry out, because the frozen hold begins to seethe. Thousands of fish are wriggling, bodies slipping from the open hatch and falling to the water where the crowd surge to watch them hit the green and dart away, alive. "Ah! They live! Monroe, quickly!" The hose swings in to cover the hatch and catch those fish wriggling back to the water. The old machine turns over and the hose judders to life, roaring and shaking as the multitude begin to stream down the pipe that snakes above their heads toward the distant lorries. The diesel engine roars as the river of life is sucked along, and the pipe belches as fish begin to spew into the load bed of the first lorry. With all eyes on the trucks, none are watching the ship, none but Uncle Mike, who has not taken his eyes from the little man. He watches as Yoguchi looks to the sailor on the deck, who looks to the bridge. On that cue, the door there opens, and from it steps another man. He is dressed in the robes of these foreigners, wound across his body and up about his face. A headdress rests on his head, clearly the mark of the captain. The strange figure stands there a moment, and by osmosis the crowd notice him. All swing their attention back to the ship and to the man towering over them all. "It's the boy from the Morkel Fabrik," whispers one. "It's our own fisher." He is indeed the size of Jono the fisher, and he is indeed the shape of Jono the fisher. He stands forlorn like the boy always did, and then, before their eyes, he straightens. All mark it. It is the movement of boy to man, from lost to found. All see it, all feel it, all know it to be that forlorn boy having found his home. "Jono!" shouts one among them. "Take your mask off! Let us see you!" The figure moves, his right arm sweeping up to cross his chest, and then suddenly he freezes, and his head turns sharply. None understand the strange gesture, and there is a deepening silence until, with a sudden flourish, the strange captain turns this oddity into a bow. The crowd laugh. Here is Jono, their boy, covered in the stuffy robes of the foreigners, but still with the love of laughing of any man or woman of the Bai. They giggle at his antics. Even Yoguchi is smiling. "Hey, Jono, don't forget your manners. Just because you're a captain now, don't mean you're not a buyer. Jono, show us your pretty face." The crowd laugh louder, full of the hope of the catch. The captain spreads his arms, asking for quiet. He pauses, holding them all in his thrall, and then he salutes them. His message is clear. All will be well. And the crowd burst into a cheer. One of their own is within the strange ship. One of their own. He turns and disappears inside. "Good on you, Jono! Captain! Captain! Captain!" Uncle Mike turns to Yoguchi and catches the man staring directly back at him. Yoguchi holds his gaze for a moment, and then he too turns and is gone. Behind Uncle Mike, the harbour hand Monroe has joined the six and is handing out paper chits. "We will record your catch on the weighbridge," Monroe is informing them while pressing 6 chits into 6 waiting hands. "Mr. Yoguchi is offering you last season's price on Tani. He is sure you will agree." The men do agree, each fingering the paper before them, each immersed in their own calculations. How do you quantify the rain when finally it falls on the desert? "Uncle Mike," states Monroe, pressing a 7th sales chit into the big man's paw. "Payment terms are 1 week from today." The crowd is dispersing and the 6 are moving off to the trucks, where one by one the hose is depositing a shower of wriggling tunny into each flatbed. 2 have already clattered to life and rolled out of the harbour. Uncle Mike remains on the clearing quay. He touches his chin as his eyes turn to the metal trawler. The hull of the ship is still riding low, despite the amount of catch already offloaded. He imagines the weight that must remain within, building a picture for himself of the mass of fish the ship can contain. And then he does what his brain is aching to do. He multiplies that wonderful number by 4. In his mind's eye, he sees the other ships steaming even now toward the foreigner's homeland, each with 14 of the buyer's lorry loads tucked into their holds. He taps his grizzled finger to his chin. He knows now more than ever that it is crumbs only that are reserved for the men and women of this place. Finally he turns, and he too leaves the emptying quay. Throughout the day, the lines in the fabrica churn through the load that has been shared among the 7. The sorting halls tumble with activity, and while the fabricas smoke and clatter, so the older people descend on the old fairgrounds of the harbour. There they lay open the pits that have been filled in with rubble these 7 years, and they hang coloured paper in streamers, and they unfold tables to be topped with the breads, salads, puddings, and baskets of meat that each fabric will provide, as per their share, as was done in days before. "The drought is over," is the refrain that runs through the laying of every branch of wood into the fire pits, and every plate on the table, and every line of streamers drifting in the fresh wind. Autumn is blessing the Bai with the last days of summer, and tonight the 7 will host the celebration. But while the new harvest is chopped and sliced through the lines in 6 factories, at one of them a load of fish lies untouched. At the Morkel Fabrik, the workers stand idle around the truck while Sali talks with Uncle Mike in his office, and while Boyson, Sali's oldest, leans by the lorry cab with a cigarette at his lip to ensure the stinking fish are untouched. At length Sali emerges, hurrying, unhappy, a box cradled in his arms. "Move! Move!" He gestures to Boyson so that the man jumps away and Sali dumps the box on the passenger seat, the door hanging open at the hinge. "Now come around," he calls, fishing into the box with one hand and extracting a brown envelope. He holds it aloft, evidence to the gathering that he is empowered to speak. "There is no work today." Glances ripple through the gathering, and mutters, "What do you mean?" "No work, Mr. Janser. Today we do not process. But don't worry, Uncle Mike has his Mensa, his people, at heart. We will all be paid, full wages." He waves the brown envelope above their heads. "Everyone, paid for not a stitch of work. It's the lucky day of yous lazy bastards." Sali tilts the envelope above him to see the name scrawled by hand across the cover. Dennis January! A hand is raised in the sea of heads, and there is a ripple as Mr. January sidles his way to the cab. There's your packet. Sali hands Mr. January his brown envelope. Sophie Richards! And Sali places the next in the hands of Sophie Richards, woman of the line of the Morkel Fabrik. Uncle Mike says not to worry, you's lazy varka. Come to the party tonight. He will see you's there. Celebrate! Fish are back in the bay. The night draws in, and the people of the bay begin to gather. They have worked for 24 hours, sleeping next to the line when knives began to slip from weariness, and then they stood to continue when the cacophony of a full sorting floor woke them. And now they have hoisted themselves and returned home and bathed, and they arrive at the harbour grounds with a box of wine already inside, ready to celebrate. The fires crackle high, and above them the stars burn. The town is thronged around the fire pits, and then, streaming out of the darkness, comes a beast. It tears through the spark-filled air, floating sinuous above the flames, eyes flashing from a painted face. The fisher folk stare and point as the dragon floats above them, its head darting beneath and then above its flowing tail. Under the beast, Yoguchi's men move in unison. The beat of a drum holds the dragon high until suddenly the pounding stops, and in the silence the creature falls to the fires. Yoguchi's men step aside as the dragon is consumed. All observe in silence as the creation dies, and once again there is but flame and smoke and man. All are riveted, but one. She is at their edges. She moves through them without sound. She, who is here to find her love. She knows he is here. She has come far, outrunning the bear as he chased her all along the trail, and avoiding all eyes as she observed the docking of the ship with the rest, and saw the captain revealed above the crowd. My love, she had spoken in the way that only he is able to hear, and he had heard. His head had come up sharply to spy her in her hiding place in the girders of the sailing deck, looking down upon them all. He had raised his hand to her, before once again turning to the crowd, his people, and she had thrilled to it, and now he is here and waiting for her, and together they will escape. As Yoguchi's men stand uncertainly in the aftermath of their dragon dance, peering at the gaily lit throng around them, and a banjo picks up a new tune and one by one they are taken by the hand and given food and drink and friendship. She drifts on their periphery, following the trail of her love. Yoguchi stands near the flames, his cigarette to his smile. A ripple in the crowd causes him to turn. Here come the consortium, Van Deventer, Mostert, Wetherall Thomas, the Scarfsma brothers, and old Mocha. Mike Morkel is not among them. Mr. Yoguchi, coughs the big Van Deventer, sticking out his hand. We congratulate you on good fishing. Mr. Van Deventer, thank you, replies Yoguchi, stepping forward with his own hand outstretched. We thank you also for diverting your catch to our processing plants. We were pleased to work it, to our fashion. I thought it proper, says Yoguchi, stepping nearer and raising a hand to Van Deventer's shoulder. These are your seas, after all. I am but a guest here. Van Deventer's eyes flicker to Mocha before he continues. We have come to settle with you. The men behind Van Deventer shuffle, revealing a brown envelope clutched in each hand. All their faces are drawn in the same relief, that of surrender. That is very generous, remarks Yoguchi, his open arms drawing the group closer to his circle. But let us discuss. I feel that you are too kind. Perhaps we can sit somewhere with a plate of food and talk things through. Tonight is, after all, for celebration. Easily Yoguchi shepherds the men to where a table with 8 places has been set. I see Uncle Mike has not accompanied you. He will be here, I am sure of it, replies Van Deventer. His workers are here. He will come. There is no sense in staying away. No, replies Yoguchi. There is not. He raises his eyes to the stars and listens amid the cacophony for something. Blue smoke from the fires drifts among the trees, and she glides beneath them. Here, on the far edge of the harbour grounds, at the place where fishers can walk the open path skirting the ground straight to the quays and the boats shifting at their mooring lines, the foreign fishers have raised their camp. These men of the sea have been on their vessels or confined to their tents for all the months since arriving at the bay. These tents are their separate home where, until tonight, no man or woman of the bay has ventured. Tonight, on the gift of their shared catch, that will change. Tonight a new generation will be made. But she is not concerned with their futures. She is headed for her own. There is one among all that she can hear. My love, she hears him call, and she answers, my love. The tents rise up around her, rows of bunk shelters for the fishers, a canvas hall thrown up around tables for eating and television, a place of exercise for these strange men, and a canvas home for Yoguchi, where he speaks with headquarters. She passes all of this, drawn to the water and the open sea that laps against the ocean side of the breaker wall. His call draws her there, and she is not surprised. Of course he will be at the water. What will he say when he sees her walking? What will she say to see his new authority draped around him? How has he changed? And she? What will have changed between them, and what will be the same? She wonders all of this with delight and desire as she leaves the tents and the noise of the celebration behind. Here is the whoosh of breakers sighing through rock and the fresh wind of the ocean. Here is the possibility of the night. My love. The silhouette of the Dolos, the great concrete T-shaped molds of the breakwater, are ahead of her. The stark shapes move apart suddenly. A shadow separates itself from their concrete outlines, a being with a headdress that peaks toward the sky. He turns to her. There is open ground ahead and she pauses, remaining in the last cover of the tangled bush, afraid to cross the last barrier between them. Why did you leave, my love? The being raises its hand to her, his hand. My love. He raises his other. My love. Her lip trembles, all of the pain of the past weeks rising in her body, all that she has seen, all the distance she has traveled, all the confusion, and all the longing for him. Where did you go? He makes to move towards her, and she can no longer stay away. She steps forward, shrouded in white, standing on her new legs. I have come to you. I have come to the land for you. The figure does not move, his peak silhouetted against the stars. My love. She takes another careful pace forward, stepping into the last of the awful gulf of their separation. My love? Suddenly an explosion of white light. Her world is devastated by it, her pupils seared. She lifts her hands to her eyes at the same time as a rush of figures comes swarming out of the dark. My love! She strikes out, attempting to turn and run, but she is hooked by innumerable hands that drag her to the dirt. My love! She shouts from her own throat, a strange shriek, her strength coming to her as she strikes out at these figures, raking them, hearing the grunt of one of them as he falls. But then a new explosion. The world wobbles as something is bashed into her skull. She falls, her eyes on him, and sees that he is overwhelmed also. They are everywhere, men in dark garb with their heads shrouded. She shrieks, but these creatures do not stop. She calls and he cannot help her. The fight drains from her body. She relents, dropping her head to the dirt. Up there the stars shimmer, among them the scorpion beams. And what is this? The words are formed in a strange tongue. The voice is soft and strident, as light as a drip of poison. She will not forget the sound of it. It is the first moment of the rest of her life. She looks up and for the first time sees the scorpion curled in the sky. A face appears, blotting out the creature. It smiles, a coal glowing at the lips before swirling away in smoke. Yoguchi peers down at her. "And what are you?" he repeats, shocking her with his voice vibrating not in the world, but in her own mind. He speaks as she does. He regards her, dark eye to green. "What a wonderful creature," he croons, as a drugged cloth is clamped over her nose, and she spins away into the dark. Fragrant smoke drifts from a brazier up into the high reaches of Yoguchi's tent. Up there the night's breeze swirls, pulling the smoke away. His quarters are functional. On the far wall is a CB radio station where he confers nightly with home. Filing cabinets are stacked next to it, tracking around the back of the tent. In the middle of the room is a table on which he dines and where he reads. And here on the near side is his camp cot and his indulgence, an Audio-Technica turntable. It sits on a low table beside the cot. A set of headphones is placed on top of its closed lid, and a long cable stretches easily to his pillow. But now is not the time for him to lie and dream within the world of his music, because his cot is occupied. She lies naked on it, asleep. Yoguchi stands near the ashtray, his cigarette forgotten as he studies the creature and looks upon his own future. She is very nearly 7 feet tall, and she is exquisite. She is woman and she is fish. Her body is molded by water, every joint and sinew blending to the flow of liquid, smoothed and powerful. She radiates power. He leans closer, finding the path of muscle from thigh to belly that remembers a mighty tail. He finds webbing between her fingers, and he finds the twin slits in her neck frilled with gill. He runs his fingers across her without touching, drinking her with his eyes, marveling. She is fish, and yet her body calls to him. Her jewel-shaped eyes and high cheekbones are haunting. Her hips make him ache. The pale slit between her legs, dusted pink at its edges, puts fire in his blood. She is a rendering of high geometry. He longs to see her swim. He puts his hand out to her, pausing before his fingers touch the sacred flesh. He breathes, aware of this moment of his own existence, this peeling apart of the veil between himself and his destiny. She is a creature the likes of which he has never seen, and he is certain she was created only for him. Lightly he takes her fingers. He closes his eyes and trains his mind to hers. He is not prepared for the onslaught. Within her is the deepest ocean, howling with all of its multitudinous life. He hears the pulse of every being swimming out there, a great host churning in an avalanche of sound. "Eat!" roars through his ears, flesh, bones, and he snatches his hand away and falls to the ground, his hand on his wildly beating heart. He stares at this creature, wide-eyed, as she looks at him. Before she can say a word, there is a scratching at the tent flap. "Come," orders Yoguchi, standing quickly. A sailor enters, his eyes carefully finding his master's and then holding them, rather than looking about the room, rather than meeting the green eyes of the creature. "There is a problem outside. It is the Kyojin, the giant." Yoguchi glances back at her. "Tie her and bring her, and keep 10 men on her at all times." Yoguchi hurries through the fresh night with his men behind him. His face is painted with intent. The bear has come to play, and he is grateful. If he can catch it, it will buy him years of favor. Unbidden, a pair of green eyes rise in his mind. He is still vibrating with her, full of the roar of that multitude. He shakes his head. He must focus. "One fish at a time, Yoguchi," he murmurs to himself. "First we catch our sailfish, and then we hunt our whale." A voice rings out in the distance. "Yoguchi!" It emanates from the fire pits ahead. Yoguchi, man of the rank of first captain of the Yamamoto Corporation, admiral of the Southern Fleet, permits himself a smile. The bear is bellowing. already full of anger. This is precisely the kind of bear that will walk into a trap. He notes that the music has ceased and a brilliant orange light strafes through the drifting smoke. Yoguchi! Once again the bear roars. Bring the creature near, but keep her gagged and hidden, he orders the man who hurries at his side. She must not escape. The man nods and peels back among the men following. Yoguchi reaches the fringes of the crowd and makes his way among them. All are turned in the direction of the fire pits, where just beyond them one of the Morkelfabrik trucks has pulled up, its powerful headlights cutting the smoke with fluorescent beams. A stench emanates from the lorry, the smell of rotting fish. From on top of the cab an orange searchlight plays across them all, guided by a massive hand. Yoguchi! Uncle Mike is standing astride the cab of his truck, the spotlight in one hand and a loudhailer in the other. Show yourself! Yoguchi steps into the open, his eyes cast up to the big man. Mr. Morkel. Uncle Mike turns and finds the man in his light. He flicks it left and right and finds the 6 also. Already they have the faces of strangers. Uncle Mike, says Yoguchi, stepping forward with conciliation in his tone. Come down. Our table for 8 is set. We have been waiting for you. He raises a hand to shield his eyes. Would you lower your light? I cannot see you. Mikey, speaks Van Deventer. Come now. He walks forwards, wanting to speak quietly, wanting to get this man out of the eyes of all of them. There is place for all of us here. Where are the other 4 trawlers, Yoguchi? I have sent them home. You know this. The catch is frozen. They will feed my people. And my people? Your people are not so many, Mr. Morkel. 1 load for you is enough. 1 fish of ours for you is too much. Uncle Mike looks among the crowd and sees the face of old Mocker. You will let this man take our fish? We offered him the chance to work with us, and instead he will work over us. He was not born here. This is not his buy. You were not born here either, Mikey. The table is laid for 8, calls Yoguchi. There is no leader at our table. All of us are equal. Come down and speak with us. We are not equal to your ships. Uncle Mike turns to the crowd. These men have come here because their own fish are gone. They have built their ships to sail the world in search of new fishing grounds, because their own have been decimated. It is these men that have taken the fish from our ocean. Was it us? Did we fish so much? He turns to look at Yoguchi. They will leave when they have taken all they can, and we will have nothing. We already have nothing, shouts a man of the Bai. The Fabrika were closed. Now, today, we had work. For how long will you have it? This catch is caught in the deep ocean where we cannot go. This catch is many times the size we have ever harvested. How long will the fish remain? Uncle Mike lowers his light so that all can see his face. The big man is wary. I do not come from here. I come from the mountains. My people were like you. We worked the land and hunted and required little. And then outsiders came, and with them war, and nothing remained. You people were spared the war, but you know of it. He raises his finger and trains it to the foreign vessel at mooring in the harbor. We do not know it now, but if we let these men stay, then the time will come when we realize that we have lost everything. What do we know of these people? Nothing. The eyes and faces that stare up to Uncle Mike in the white of the headlights and the soft orange of the distant harbor floodlights and the bright blues and reds and yellows of the festive lights strung about the overhanging trees digest the big man's words. There is truth in what he says, but also today there was work. Yoguchi says nothing. He can see his trap uncoiling itself to settle around the big man's neck. He climbs onto a nearby table, carefully placing his sneakered feet between the food plates, and raises himself above the crowd. "Uncle Mike!" he calls, and all the assembled eyes turn to him. "You speak truth. I cannot fault you." As Yoguchi speaks, so one of his sailors begins to translate to his men, a strange echo ringing out across the crowd. "You speak of losing your home. I can sympathize. This war touched all of us. It touched my people too." And Yoguchi points to his sailors who are dotted throughout the crowd, many of them already with a person of the bai at their side. "Just as you find yourself in this bai, far from your home and those you once loved, so my people wander the seas. Like you, we are forced to roam. Unlike you, we have not yet found a new home." Yoguchi pauses now and retrieves his packet of cigarettes from his shirt pocket. Gently he pulls one from the pack, and to many it seems, with pain in his movements. They can see the weight of the years on him also, and the years of service to his people. He is not so different to Uncle Mike. Yoguchi strikes his lighter and bends to touch his cigarette to flame. He coughs once, and people mark it. "You speak of domination from us, but you seem to forget that we have shown you only the opposite." He points to Uncle Mike. "We have provided catch for all to work. We have made favorable terms with the fabrica, and we have done even more than that." He looks around at the crowd. He allows the silence to expand. He clasps his hands before him and then spreads them into the air. "We have engaged one of your own and made him our captain. What could be a greater symbol of our intent than choosing one of you to lead us?" There is a disturbance near the tents. A ripple passes through the crowd as all turn to it. The captain seen on the boat is there, his headdress rising above them and his robes wrapped across his body. At Yoguchi's bidding, he is helped up onto a table. "Here stands our captain, Jono of the bai, a fisher with such talent that he outmatches all of us. A fisher, Uncle Mike, from your very own fabric. Here stands the very symbol of our partnership. Just as our ships bring technology from which you can learn, so we have discovered a fisher among you with such talent that we must make him our commander. As you all know, it was your boy, Jono, that led us to the harvest that we celebrate today." The crowd watch as Jono's cart, the one that all saw him pull daily along the boiling tar and the rain-lashed tar and the cold winter tar while dressed in his rags, is held up by two of Yoguchi's sailors. Every one of the bai's people knows that cart. "People of the bai," Yoguchi calls, pointing to the robed captain. "You all know your Jono, who spent his days toiling for the Morkel Fabrik. Tell us, Uncle Mike, what did you do for this boy, apart from condemn him to live alone in a hovel?" Uncle Mike blinks. He had not anticipated the man's question, even though now, once it is uttered, it is the most obvious question of all. In a flash, he sees the trap laid out for him. He sees the noose drifting down. The eyes of the crowd turn to him, eyes that each share the burden of guilt that all are so eager to part with. "I gave him everything he needed." "Everything? You gave him a hovel, a little fishing boat, and a berth at miserly pay. You would not even provide him with petrol. He was the beggar of this bai, forced to row while others used engines, and yet he is the greatest fisher of all of us." The figure of the captain stands without moving, staring steadfastly at Uncle Mike. "I gave him what he asked for. He never asked for more." "Never?" Heads turn from Yoguchi to Uncle Mike and back again. I watched him corral the biggest blue sailfish yet caught in the bay, so that the men of the bay might broker a deal with me. And I watched him do it despite an injury delivered by your own hand. Was that not his way of asking? His way of showing loyalty? I gave him what he deserved. What he deserved? You broke him. You worked him into the dust. Why? Because of his crippled mouth. At the fringe of the crowd there is a new movement, unseen by all but those standing up high. Uncle Mike, Yoguchi, and the captain can see a figure there. The sailors are struggling with it, and then she is revealed, tied securely. She raises her eyes to Uncle Mike and they pierce him, even in the dark, even from that distance. Why do you hate this boy? Is it because of his race? A delicious gasp from the crowd. The boy is not like you. He is the son of an outsider to this bay, just like you. Is that why you hate him? The crowd turn to Uncle Mike, and sentiment turns also. The pack want blood. Uncle Mike's guilt is their guilt also, and they cannot stand it. Do you hate him because of his race? Or is there a deeper reason? Who is this boy? Asks Yoguchi, pointing to the masked captain. Do the good people of the bay know the tale that you have tried so hard to keep silent, but can keep silent no more? Uncle Mike does not speak. He knows the truth has come home to roost. Instead, he looks to her. I'm sorry, he says, now knowing that his journey with her will be short, not knowing if she will hear. Do they know how you imprisoned this boy and left him to the care of your man Sali as nothing more than a cow or a pig? Do they know how you caught him in debt, how you withheld even gasoline from him so that he could not use his motor and it was impossible for him to fill his daily quota? Do they know how you paralyzed this boy's ability to fish and then accused him of laziness? Uncle Mike searches the crowd. He sees Sali out there. He sees Mocha out there. These the only ones that know his intimate life. And then he cannot help himself. Once again, he looks to her. What are you sorry for? She asks, her eyes boring into his soul. Do they know of how you beat this boy week in and week out? How you broke him year after year in punishment? The crowd mutter their agreement. Many of you remember Uncle Mike's beautiful daughter. Her name was Margaret. At the sound of her name, Uncle Mike finds strength. His voice booms out, demanding silence. Enough! Oh! Yoguchi is quick to maintain his advantage. Now you speak. You do not speak of her. But the crowd will speak of her. They turn to Yoguchi, their silence permission to continue. Not many know that at one time Margaret was to marry a boy of the choosing of her father. He points to Van Deventer, who nods his assent. The son of Van Deventer was to be her betrothed, and the Morkel and Van Deventer Fabrica were to merge. But the spirited girl refused. Why? Yoguchi turns his face to Uncle Mike, and the crowd follow. Because she had already found her love. And who was he? He was the son of poor fisherfolk, refugees like Uncle Mike himself, trying to make a new life in the bay. He was a nobody, a man who had no pedigree but his heart, as we all do. There is nodding among the crowd. There is remembering. That young fisher was known, that shy boy of the shy folk that arrived in the bay some 20 years before, that boy with the broken lip. You refused your daughter Margaret the right to marry the man she loved. You drove them to run from you, and like the unbending man that you are, you chased them. All eyes are riveted to the face of Uncle Mike. The truth of Yoguchi's words is written there, playing across his features like fire in the dry summer fields. What are you sorry for? Uncle Mike sees her green eyes. He cannot answer her. They ran and hid from your violent temper, and you chased them when you heard of their hiding place out on the northern coast. You hunted them and they fled to the sea, and you chased them still. Uncle Mike finds the face of Sally in the crowd. There is only one man who knows this aspect of the tale, only one who was with him on that day. You chased them in your own vessel and cornered them, those gentle two, that shy fisherman who did nothing but attempt to provide for his love. You hurt him, did you not? You, the great and powerful Uncle Mike. You struck him and he fell to the water, attempting to defend his love, did you not? I am sorry. Her green eyes watch him. And after her love fell into the water, you attempted to restrain your daughter, did you not? Ordering her to return to you even when her love was drowning. And then she spat on you, did she not? And flung herself into the waves. Silence rings out across the harbor picnic grounds. It was you who caused your own daughter to be lost, along with the husband she chose, and you who in your grief could not relinquish your own hate, for there was another with them. A log in the fire pit snaps with a crack, and against the breakwater the distant surf booms. Yoguchi waits, allowing the fullness of the night to witness his following words. There was a child, he says finally. By his face, all know it to be true. Their eyes move to the figure of the captain. For one final time, Uncle Mike looks to her, but she is gone. Yoguchi gestures to the masked captain who stands silent, watching them all with his cart beside him. Uncle Mike, you accuse me of coming here to defile your home, when it is you that has defiled your own blood. Jono, the greatest fisher in the bay, perhaps the greatest in the world, and your own grandson. He pauses, and then, the great Uncle Mike, he who murdered his own blood. Uncle Mike roars. He smashes the console beside him. The hydraulics of the truck begin to churn, the load of rotting fish he has refused to process sliding in a slimy mess towards the fires as he launches himself into the air. His rage is set free. Below him the faces of the people of the bay gape at him. These he has sworn to protect. Sali, he who let loose his secret. Mocha and the six who could have created a free bay with him if only they had courage. The boy who even now harries and pricks at him after all these 20 years. Uncle Mike's jump is impossible. He flies above the crowd, his massive body propelled by equally massive power, his diamond eyes pinpointed on his prize. Yoguchi is grinning at him, full of the glee of his public unmasking of the last free man of the bay, until his smile turns to terror, for Uncle Mike is heading straight for him. He shrieks. Uncle Mike smashes into the table on which Yoguchi stands. You, he roars, grabbing a foot and then a knee and then the hip of the frantic foreigner. You would kill us all! He flails for the neck of the man in a bid to snap it, howling as he feels the bone of an arm splinter under his fingers. But Yoguchi's sailors are loyal and they come rushing to his aid. Coward! Screams Uncle Mike as he is pulled down by their avalanche. Blades begin to pierce him. His meaty hands move from Yoguchi, who is slipping from his grasp, and find the necks of the sailors around him. He roils with them, laying ferocious waste as their knives pierce him over and over, and even the masked captain is dragged down into the melee, his headdress falling to the dirt amid the fighting sailors. Fight! Roars Uncle Mike, desperate to look into Yoguchi's accursed eyes before he dashes the light out of them. But the man is quick, dancing out of reach as the blades fall and darkness and blood begin to crowd Uncle Mike's vision. You will die for your sins, shouts Uncle Mike under the weight of them, trying to reach that dancing wraith. but his strength is leaking away and finally he subsides. It is chaos as his body is dragged across the stones, and darkness as their knives continue to rain down. "Do you hear me?" he hears whispered in his mind, her voice like wind chimes. "I do," he replies, and in the dark he sees her eyes. "I am dying." "No, not yet." "I tried to set him free. Don't you see?" In this twilight world he sees her hand rise up. The barb of the cephalopod is held between her fingers. "It was not enough." He feels her finger whisper upon his arm, crawling to the place where the boy stabbed him, now reopened by Yaguchi's sailors. "Can you see me?" "I can." And once again her face changes to the mask his daughter wore before she fell to the waves. And once again he feels the breaking of that piece of his heart. "Burn," she whispers as the gland touches the wound and the poison's fire bursts through his cells. "Burn, like those you have caused to burn." And he burns. Later that night, when the people of the bay have returned home, each carrying a parcel of food, and the harbor grounds have been cleared and the fires extinguished, when the sailors of Yamamoto lie in their cots, and Yoguchi murmurs into his radio, his splintered arm held to his side, Uncle Mike lies on a table in the canteen of the tent village. His body is pierced 57 times, and his blood is soaked into the ground beneath him. About him are those he has slain. To his right are 7 men on 7 tables. 5 are foreign sailors, and 2 are men of the bay. Their features have smoothed. In death, the foreigners and the men of the bay have merged. All are meat, awaiting the hungry soil. To his left lies another, the captain. The headdress is gone and the mask is pulled aside. The neck is crushed, a deep bruising beneath the skin, and a line of blood meanders from the nostril. The features of the captain are fine, the features of a boy, a young dreamer, one who can hear what others cannot. The jaw is covered by a sparse beard, barely enough to conceal the cleft in the lip beneath, and the hair is wispy and flutters in the night's breeze. The eyes are open, looking sightlessly to the canvas above, and they are blue. They are not the dark eyes of Jono, but those of a boy from another place, a boy with a similar gift, caught in the lives of others. In the canteen of the foreign fishers, all is stillness among the corpses that lie there, all but one. For the big man breathes, so softly it is impossible to see or hear, and his heart beats, so gently it is impossible to measure, and his mind howls, so finely that none can hear it but her, as she lies bound and gagged in the gently rocking hold of the Fugisha. "Burn," she whispers to him, and he does.